Hey guys, it's Alysa from Jits and Giggles. Just hopping on real quick to give you a little background about this episode. So this episode with Brianna Ste-Marie is absolutely one of my favorite episodes I have ever recorded. She is such an awesome person, but the episode might come off a little bit choppy, and here's why. So myself and Sean from People Doing Martial Arts, we traveled up to Bodega to train with Brianna and others like Anna Mayordomo, Gianni Grippo, a few other girls and guys to train with, and also because we had talked to Brianna in advance about doing a podcast after training. It was just convenient for everybody. So that's what we did. Unfortunately, sometimes when you're traveling with equipment and you're on somebody else's Wi-Fi, things just don't work. So for some reason, the audio just kept breaking down as we were recording, and Brianna was just so patient and kind. And so we had to switch over to Sean's microphone. So anyway, all this to say, it might be a little glitchy. And then the camera stopped working. It was just a day that everything was going wrong. So I salvaged the best I could, but if it does come off a little weird and you're wondering why you can't see video, that's why. Try to hide my feet from the freaking feet people.
Yeah, I know. I feel you.
God, do you get the comments?
Oh, I get the comments, the DMs.
I'm finally getting to the point.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And then when I wear socks, they comment on it. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, hiding the feet. I'm like, I can't win.
Sometimes I'll try to put like little emojis along them, just to be like, no freebies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Brianna Ste-Marie.
Hi.
Thank you for joining me. Welcome to Jits and Giggles.
Yeah.
All right, let's start. I usually like to start with a little bit of background. So talk to me about how you got into jiu-jitsu. What was your very first experience?
So I got into jiu-jitsu. I started when I was 19 years old. My father had been doing jiu-jitsu. I started in 2016. He started in about 2011, although my dad kind of grappled his whole life. Back in the day in Canada, there wasn't much available in terms of like really official Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So he was mostly doing like catch wrestling on like industrial carpets, real like 80s style grappling. Cool. But then, a couple of Brazilians came to Canada, established more like official jiu-jitsu. He started doing it. At the time, I wasn't really interested. I was like a teenage girl. So as you can imagine, sharing a hobby with my father was not top of the list, But then eventually I just tried it when I was 19 years old. And I would say that from the very first class, I was completely in love with it.
Wow.
I was like, oh my God, it's like I grew up with siblings, right? So I was like, I feel like I'm like back to like wrestling with my siblings in the grass, but now there's like technique and I can actually improve and like, one day hope to beat up my brother, So
oh my God, wait. So when I started jiu-jitsu, literally none of my family knew anything about jiu-jitsu. When I showed them like a video, the first thing my sister said, they're like, well, you've been doing that to us your whole life. So. And I'm like, but because I'm the oldest, so I'm like, whatever. Oh my God. So wait, how old were you when you took your first class?
19.
19. Okay.
Yeah.
So did your dad like kind of like persuade you into it, or just from watching him, you were like, oh, let me try it out? Yeah,
I guess like I just like my progression with like athletics was just like, I guess progressively more violent, So I started in soccer and I was like, this just ain't quite doing it for me.
Right.
Moved on to rugby. Absolutely loved rugby. Still love rugby. And then tried jiu-jitsu and I was like, ooh, this is like all my favorite parts of rugby, that like heavy contact, but just like condensed into a sport. So I think like when I finally actually was at an age where, I could have a regular conversation with my father and find out a little bit more what this jiu-jitsu thing was like. I kind of was like, oh, this sounds like I might actually be into this, Yeah.
Do you feel like, so I actually knew you did rugby, which is really freaking cool. Do you feel like rugby helped you a lot in jiu-jitsu in certain ways?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that while like, obviously something like wrestling or judo, you have like a direct translation of techniques into the sport. It's not so much the case with rugby, but what I will say is there's a lot of times when people start, especially when you start as an adult, you have this like awkwardness towards the like intensity of the contact.
Yeah.
And so you'll see people who are really hesitant for the first few months that they do it. You're like, okay, now you can mount me. And they're kind of like, oh, are you sure? Is it okay that I put my weight, whatnot? I obviously had none of that, So when they told me like, okay, we're rolling now and you try as hard as you can to win this, I was like, okay, no problem. I would just like throw myself at people,
yeah.
So I never really had that like initial hesitation with the sport, which allowed me to really jump right into it. And then obviously the athleticism that comes with playing any kind of sport at a certain level is never a bad thing. Yeah.
Right. Was there anything that you feel like came naturally to you when you first started jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, it's funny. My first tournament I I think I'd only been training for about a month. And I actually say this to people when they wonder if they should compete or not. When I actually started jiu-jitsu, I didn't even think that was a question. I thought everyone actually just did the competitions. Because in my mind, having played rugby for 10 years, it was like you would never just do the rugby practice and never play a game, right? So when I found out there was like a tournament coming to Montreal about a month after I started, in my mind it was like, oh, the whole team is going to sign up unless you're injured, because it's like, this is the game. We're doing the practice, now we got to go do the game.
Exactly.
And then when I went to that tournament, my coach, obviously I had, very few techniques at my disposal. And then my coaches were just telling me, they're like, oh, just rugby tackle them when the match starts. And, this was white belt division. So it actually got me quite far. I won my first 2 matches just rugby tackling the girls. So, essentially shooting a double. And then it was so funny because the girl I fought in the finals, she actually took a proper like wrestling stance, hips back, like, it wasn't just like standing upright like a pin. And I just remember turning to my coaches being like, I don't know what to do.
What do I do now?
And then she took me down and just absolutely mauled me, so it was a good learning experience.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like that must be like similar to if you have like a wrestling background, right? Like I feel like we see a lot of white belts that have no understanding of jiu-jitsu yet, and they just go out there and wrestle and they win a lot of the times, right? So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So did rugby and your other sports bring you over to the United States ever, or was jiu-jitsu the first time that you were coming over to, compete?
Yeah, I think like for rugby, I definitely traveled. I would say I mostly traveled within Canada. I did go to the UK when I was 14. We did kind of like a tour with our summer club, which was a really great experience. But I always I guess with rugby, I always tried out for the highest level team that was like available to me. I always wanted to push myself, but I never really imagined myself playing professionally, I guess, So I definitely traveled for tournaments. I was on like the provincial team for a bit, and then played like varsity, played for like club in the summer, but never to the extent obviously that I've done with jiu-jitsu.
Right. Yeah. At what point were you like, okay, I'm pretty good at this, maybe I'll do this professionally?
For jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, for jiu-jitsu.
I think like it was kind of a mix of two things. Like in terms of competing at like the majors and all that stuff, I definitely had teammates that were doing those tournaments, so it was kind of like them being encouraging and being like, oh, like why don't you just tag along, and then I went to these tournaments with no expectations or kind of pressure, and then I was doing well against girls who were like winning these things, you know? And then I kind of thought, oh, well, actually, like, maybe I'm not too bad at this. So I just kept on competing at those, at that level. And then in terms of like deciding to pursue it professionally, I think that really just came from a place of like love for the sport, where I was in university at the time and I just couldn't imagine like doing anything. I was like, wow, I love doing jiu-jitsu more than anything. Like I would choose it above any activity, even like what I previously would have thought as like a really fun night out. I was like, I'd rather go to jiu-jitsu class, And I kind of thought, well, like, if I love something this much, maybe I should just try to make this work. So
that kind of
came from that place. Yeah.
What were you going to school for originally?
So originally I was in pure and applied math. And then I became a jiu-jitsu degenerate and stopped attending classes and realized that I was not intelligent enough to not attend classes and get a degree in pure and applied math. So then I switched over to environmental studies so that I could not attend classes, get my degree so that my mom would not
there you go.
Be totally disappointed in me.
I like it.
And then still pursue my jiu-jitsu dreams.
Wait, that's so funny. You're like, okay, I have to complete this to get my mom to like get off my back. So what can I do that's like, you have to be pretty smart though still to just like half-ass college and just get a full-ass degree and be in jiu-jitsu 24/7.
Yeah, I will say, I know this is not what the podcast is about, but actually my experience with university kind of made me realize, I was like, yeah, there's some serious flaws in the educational system, because I was like, I didn't actually learn much. I just happened to have the type of brain where I can like, cram successfully and memorize stuff on short notice. And I was like, and that got me a degree. And I was like, oh,
that is so freaking funny. So you got your degree, your mom's happy now. And then did you ever actually like say to your parents, like, actually, I'm not pursuing anything to do with my degree. I'm just going to go full time for jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, I think like, I remember there was a moment I did start working like just like a standard corporate job after university. This was in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So during the pandemic, I was working remotely and I was doing that, and actually, so I would work 9 to 5. I would either go train at like 7 a.m. and then train at the evening class as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes on certain days I'd be able to swing a lunch class, if I rushed it.
Right.
But I realized that like, as I was doing this, I just absolutely hated being like sitting at a desk all day.
Yeah.
Like I just felt like really unhappy. And then I actually felt my training. It's funny. I would go training. I'd be like, oh, surely I was sitting all day, I'm going to be like so full of energy and really perform. And it was actually the opposite. I think because I was sitting around all day, just like unhappy, I would show up to training and have some of my worst sessions. And then my friend, actually, Alysa Tremblay, who's quite like a spectacular competitor herself. She's was definitely one of the pioneers in women's jiu-jitsu, and definitely a role model for me coming up. And I remember she told me, she was like, at one point, she was like, oh, I'm just going to like, instead of half-assing two things, I'm going to full-ass something for a year, And I was like, oh, maybe I'm going to full-ass jiu-jitsu for a bit and see where that takes me, So I quit that job, and I do remember, she never said anything. And my mom, by the way, for the record, has been like nothing but unbelievably supportive and has done everything to help me in my career. And I understand a parent's worry of like, oh, are they going to be able to like support themselves with this?
Right.
So it all just came from a very like good place of love and support. But I definitely, when I quit that job, I could tell that she was kind of like, yo, what are you doing? Like, what's going on here? What's the plan?
As a parent, I'm sure that's like scary, you know? So what were you doing? Like initially when you quit your job, like how were you able to, afford just your life?
Yeah. So I think initially I was teaching more classes. And like, obviously, like I have had like tremendous support from my sponsors. So like shout out to Hyperfly for really helping me to actually pursue my dreams in the sport. They've been with me since brown belt, so it's having people like them in my corner, and then other sponsors along the way that were tremendously helpful as well. I think so. It was mostly teaching at the beginning that I was making, and then I was waitressing too here and there at one point. But thankfully I haven't had to do that either for a little while.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah.
Do you feel like marketing yourself as an athlete is something that came natural for you, or is it something that you really had to work hard at doing?
Yeah, that's actually a great question, and something that I like to talk about to other people. I definitely didn't feel that I took naturally to social media. And I was actually really, really lucky to encounter some like pretty amazing women in my career that just mentored me on these things. And, obviously just on their own time, they didn't ask for nothing in return. So notably, Meghi and Sarah Rafferty both have just taught me so much kind of on what it really is, especially in the sport of jiu-jitsu specifically. We're not salaried athletes on how to make a living. And I used to almost kind of be a little bit like salty towards the whole social media thing, because I would see athletes that, either I had like really like, let's say, dominantly beaten in competition, I felt like I had more accolades then, and I would see them getting either better opportunities when it came to super fights or like better sponsors, whatever it was, and I would be actually like a little bit like bitter about that. And then they really like shone a light on the fact that like, actually, like, social media isn't something that you're like innately good at or innately bad at. Obviously, certain personalities are going to be better at certain skills, but that's what it is. It's a skill. And just like anything, it's like something that you can actually get better at. And the reality is that right now as a jiu-jitsu athlete, developing that skill is something that's very directly going to translate to you being paid in the sport.
Yes.
So I have actually, now I'm like, I actually get upset if someone puts down someone who's very good at social media. I'm like, actually that person is doing really great to market themselves, and they deserve every opportunity that's going to come their way.
Absolutely.
And I do wish that like for the people who really struggle with it, that I hope that the sport does get to a place where they're still being paid like a living wage, without necessarily having to engage in that stuff. But as it is right now, I kind of was like, they gave me that reality check. Like, no, this is not something that you can just dismiss as like, I'm above this or whatever it is. Like, I'm just focusing on my jiu-jitsu. Like, that's something that's actually like, if you want to like make a career in this, like you need to give this a minimum of attention,
Absolutely. And I can see how like your gut reaction is to be like, feeling annoyed that somebody could market themselves better even if you're athletically better. Like that makes sense, right? It's like, what the hell? I'm putting in all this like athletic physical work and I beat you, but you're still getting more followers or more sponsorships because people prefer to follow you on social media. I could understand that. But to your point, when you think about the big picture, if you take jiu-jitsu out of it, every company has to do that. And it's like, we're basically our own company, right? So it makes sense. But I've talked to so many athletes and half love it and half despise it and wish they could delete Instagram and never be on their phone. But it sounds like it's just a necessary evil, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah, definitely. At least right now. And like, I do try to like have certain like things in place so that I'm not like I very much go like in and out of the app. So I have like a bunch of like, time limits set on it, all these things.
Good.
And I try not to be so much of a consumer of it because I do have to go on it to like, create in a sense.
Right.
So I try not to actually like, I rarely scroll through my feed. I try to not scroll through like my explore page. I just kind of try to use it as like, this is a tool.
Right.
So at least I can try to limit my time as best as possible.
That's smart,
there.
yeah.
But it's difficult. I mean, those apps are made to be like addictive and to kind of pull you in and it's hard like mentally, like to go to a place where you're constantly seeing, like other people's like highlight reels, other people like, like obviously you're going to see the best of their jiu-jitsu, and it's like if it's someone you're competing against, all these things can kind of play into your mind. So I think it's really important to like have some like boundaries, I guess, with those apps. Yeah,
absolutely. Do you have any like very basic advice, like if somebody's trying to get better at marketing themselves, is there anything you do that's pretty simple you could advise?
Yeah, I think like the two things that helped me the most, one was like, I think it was Meg who said this. She was like, oh, like the internet has like a really short memory, because I'd always be so stressed about like content, like whatever. And I would like post about a tournament once and then be like, oh my God, people have heard enough about this. Like if I post about this win twice, like people are going to be like, damn, she's like really like she's got a big head, and that's just not the case. Yeah, the internet has a really short-term memory. So like sometimes I wouldn't want to like repost, like I wouldn't want to post about like a victory like more than once, maybe twice,
Yeah.
But the reality is like so many people just don't see things, or they're there to support you, So it's like you don't have to stress so much about like creating content. Honestly, you can post about like the same tournament like 5 times and like no one cares.
That's a good
point.
point.
And
Yeah.
they just like they're happy for you. And then the other thing too is honestly just like take ideas from other people those people who you look at and you're like, oh, they're just naturally so good at social media. I'm like, now I'll just go on their account and be like, oh, I could do a video like that, like I could take this, I feel like that's like really what like social media is these days anyway. So I think that's like another good way is like, just mimic the more skilled folk around you.
No, I think that's true. It's like, why recreate the wheel if it's already good? No, that's really good advice. And that's basically what TikTok is.
Yeah.
Honestly, right? Like all these like challenges or whatever. Okay, I'm going to switch to, and if you don't enjoy this, you can blame our friend Sean because he came up with these questions.
Okay, sure.
These were I had to think of like most like PC Eagles appropriate Canada questions.
Well, I know some of them mean. Okay.
Remember, I'm French Canadian, so I feel like sometimes my references are like not the same. Okay, go.
I'm like, first one, have you ever gone ice skating? I'm just kidding. If you had to train in any other Canadian province, which would it be and why?
Oh God. See, like my thoughts right away, like I'm like on one side there's like where the training is best, and then on the other side I'm like where there's the best food and like like natural landscape.
I like it.
So I would say like the training is probably best if I was going to go to another like province or city. It'd probably be Toronto. It's super like high level. The food is also really good in Toronto, so that's like 2 pluses. I would say like the natural landscape kind of mid. Sorry, Toronto.
What is your Tim's order?
My Tim's are Sean.
You should have.
Well played. Okay, so I will say that Tim's got bought. God, my heart stops every time I touch that thing. Don't be the problem. Okay. Yeah, so I will say actually really quick rant is that Tim's got bought by a Brazilian company, and yeah, Sean's nodding because he fucking knows, and they got bought by an American company, and now all of a sudden Tim's is selling like pizza and like fried chicken sandwiches, and I'm like, what have we become? So I'm gonna say my Tim's order before it got ruined.
Okay.
I definitely used to just do like an everything bagel and cream cheese. Always a hit. I love a Tim Matin. Actually, Gary Tonin had like a hot take on breakfast sandwiches that I thought was like so true. He was like, oh, bacon is definitely the better breakfast meat, but the problem is that you get like the 2 of the saddest bacon slices ever, and therefore sausage becomes better just because it's like actually like a substantial like,
that is a hell of a take.
Piece of meat. Yeah. So sorry. As far as drinks go, I don't say no to an ice cap in the summer. Not a morning ice cap kind of gal. I feel like you have to be pretty low in a low place to get a morning ice cap. But
Ice cap.
Kill in the U.S.
Yeah.
Like a morning ice.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's like a frappuccino, kind of vibe.
Okay.
I feel like you have to either be like under the age of 17 or like just given up to have like a morning ice cap. Sorry.
Wait, also, can you describe, because I did not research this,
Yeah.
what kind of a restaurant compared to something maybe we have here?
It was like, so originally it was like a very like just staples. Oh, and I love Timbits, obviously. Sorry. It was like really like, I don't know, maybe like a Dunkin' Donuts, but like just way better.
Okay. I was gonna say
know?
Dunkin', but I didn't want to offend anybody.
No, it's fine. It was like that, but it was actually like kind of good quality for like a good price. And then they've just lost their soul completely. Yeah.
Welcome back to the most fucked up episode of Jits and Giggles. I'm here with Brianna Ste-Marie, who's very, very patient. If you guys didn't know, a lot of patience on and off the mats. We were
I ate a snack, so I'm feeling a lot more patient now.
We were passionately talking about her Tim's order. Oh, you were describing it as a Dunkin' Donut, but a lot better.
In its heyday.
In its heyday.
Now I don't associate with Tim's. I don't like what it's become.
Now it's owned by a bunch of Brazilians, you said?
I think first Brazilians and then Americans.
God,
but
it's getting worse.
Yeah.
Sorry. What's next? Okay, we're still good. I'm like literally like sweating, panicking. You just let me know if it's fucking up. Okay. All right. Any other Canadian questions before I move on, Sean? That might have been why it kept breaking. We're good? Okay. All right. So back to me. So you were talking earlier and you were saying, you travel quite a bit and there's pros and cons to that. What kind of sacrifices have you had to make for your career? And maybe like what is the largest sacrifice you've had to make?
I guess that's hard to like pinpoint one like particularly big sacrifice. I think I guess I would highlight like I think when you do choose to like follow your like passion in life, like I think this maybe applies to like other, I don't know, maybe like artists or athletes or whatever it is. I think you kind of like you get to have the chance at doing something that you really love as a job. I do think you sacrifice a lot of like the comfort that comes with maybe working like a more standard job. I know when I did work like that corporate job for a few months, like it was really nice to have like a paycheck come in every 2 weeks that was like I could not stress about money, not stress about what the next thing was. I think that's like really comfortable, and I think that's really the trade-off that like you a lot of us deal with when we pursue our passion. So I think with jiu-jitsu, I chose to do that. I think I'm really blessed in a lot of ways. I get to do cool things for work every day, like something we've been saying lately in the training room is just like when I rock up, it's like, oh, this is the best part of the day. It's 10 a.m. on a Thursday and I get to be at the gym on the mats with like my friends and like roll around on the floor for a living. Like that's freaking awesome, and then there's some trade-offs, right? Where like, okay, well, I need to like hustle to figure out how I'm going to keep this, lifestyle going and whatnot. And there's moments where that can be scary, but I think on the whole, I'm really grateful to live the life I do. Yeah.
So to sum it up, it's like there are sacrifices, but you feel like they're all worth it for what you get to do. What is your go-to comfort food after hard training?
Oh, carbs. I think carbs in any and all shapes and forms. I guess like I love bread. Like bread is so good. I think my measure for like any food on planet Earth is like, is it at least as good as like a nice bread with some butter on it? Because like if it's not, then like why am I wasting my time? So yeah.
Okay, let's see. What's a strength you now have that you feel like may have used to be your weakness?
Maybe the way I approach training. Like I think when I started off, and I don't know if it was a weakness. I think there's like benefit to training like this for a certain period of time, but definitely it was like, always like, win at all costs in the training room. And that was kind of like the goal of training every day. And I feel like now I'm like a totally different person in the room where like I can go in with specific goals and I don't feel like, I care so much as the overall results, like from like a competitive standpoint in the training room. It's really just about like self-improvement. And I feel like that's something that I've really like switched in my approach to training that I feel like has just really benefited me over the past few years in terms of like skill development and all the things. So yeah, maybe that. I don't know if that was a proper answer to the question, but yeah.
And kind of going off of that, over the years, you've obviously competed on bigger and bigger stages and more often, I would say. What do you do to get yourself in the right mindset? Like when you're walking out there, I assume there's a little bit of nerves involved. Anything particular you say to yourself or you do right before you walk out for a match?
I've played around with different like pre-comp routines over the years. I think it's really important to not like, I think a lot of people actually just they start like going to like bigger tournaments, bigger stages. And I almost feel like in a way you can just see the way that they approach that particular event, and you can kind of tell that they've already lost in their head, especially if they're going against a particular athlete that, might have like a lot of really strong marketing behind them, a lot of like people know this guy, they've seen their highlights, whatever. And you can tell that they're almost just like comfortable losing against that person, and they kind of see themselves on a different level. I think that's something that I've always handled like pretty well throughout my career. I don't really believe in the boogeyman. I might not beat someone on that day, but I always believe that I can beat that person. And I think that that's really important going on to like bigger stages. And then, I have things like routines. Like I love to do like anything that's going to quiet my mind. I'm an anxious overthinker. So a lot of screaming voices up there. I'm not schizophrenic, despite what that might imply, but that's it. That's what Eastern Europe is going to use. Here's voices. So I try to do things that's just going to have me be present, quiet mind. And that's just going to let kind of the work that I've put in shine, and hopefully that's enough that day.
Do you feel like you've always been, you're interviewing me. Do you feel like you've always been confident and always felt like you could go out there and beat somebody, or do you feel like that's something you had to like train your mind to say?
I'd say I've always been really confident in my jiu-jitsu abilities. I've never had necessarily reason to think otherwise. I've definitely lacked a lot of confidence at certain points in my career in my ability to showcase those skills in a competitive setting. So I would say that's kind of like the battle. Yeah.
All right. I'll hand you this. We're going to do a quick this or that. Morning or night rolls?
Morning. Far and away.
Why?
I love sleeping, and I do not sleep at night if I roll at night.
Oh, that's true. Whenever I do like at Web, we do a lot of night rolls, and when I get home, I'm just laying in bed amped. So I feel that. Smash pass or flow pass?
Smash pass. All right, go on.
I can attest to that. And why?
I don't know. I mean, for me, oh my God. I want to make a reel with this, but there's this amazing quote. I don't know if anyone's watched like the new Penguin show with like Colin Farrell as the Penguin. And they like basically at one point he fucks up and he like has to go to like the mob boss's house. And then the kid he's with is like, we're going in there. And then he like turns to him and he's like, the only way out is through. And I was like, that's my fucking jujitsu.
That would be a good sound over you doing that.
Yeah.
Fucking love it. Would you rather do a hard weight cut or fight up a weight division?
I guess fight up a weight division, most likely. Yeah.
Cutting is not fun. Ice bath or sauna?
Sauna. Yeah.
Have you ever done an ice bath?
I have. I find them tremendously unpleasant. And I also do think there's just like, and whatever, I have no data to support me, but neither do the ice bath people. So anyways, but like, I'm like, if you're doing something for recovery, I feel like athletes, we get lost in the sauce of like, must push through like the most painful version of everything at all times. I'm like, if you're doing something for recovery, probably it's supposed to like deramp your nervous system and kind of bring you to a place of like zen. So like I've been really leaning into that and like doing things that actually feel good for recovery,
Imagine that. No, I agree with you. I feel like there is this push right now for like always doing the hardest thing and being uncomfortable, and I think that's important sometimes, but maybe not 24/7. Half guard or close guard?
Wow, that's fucked up. Okay. I'm gonna go with God. Don't make me choose between my children. It's like choose one. Well, I mean, obviously close guard is stronger, but then half guard has gotten me out of a lot of really shit positions. So, close guard on a good day, half guard on a bad day. Yeah.
I like it. Do you have any hot takes?
Off the top of my head, it's so hard to get one off the top of my head. Oh, actually, I guess my latest hot take has been like, I realized like I just despise flow rolling, and I just realized that like now if I like go into a session and I want to train less hard, I'm like, I'll just train less hard and lose the round if that's what it means. Right. I'm like, I hate like this idea of like, let's do like a choreographed dance. I'm like, why don't I just like train at the intensity that I'm looking to train? And then worst case, I lose the round and it doesn't matter. It's training, Yeah.
Do you feel like if you're rolling with someone who's a lower belt, because I've heard this before, so I'm curious in your opinion, if you're rolling with a lower belt, is it bad practice to allow them to put you in bad positions? So to explain, I've heard that it's better, like if I'm rolling with a lower belt, which there's only one below me, and I want to like allow them to, and I want to allow them to work. Like rather than like allow them to like pass my guard, it's like better to like start in a bad position. Do you have an opinion on that?
No, I mean, I think I've done like different versions of like rolling with a lower belt. Like there's moments where I'm like, oh yeah, like let me go into some bad spots and like try to work my escapes. I think it's just important in any role to have like kind of a specific goal. So, yeah, if you know you're dealing with someone less experienced, it's like, oh, how, are you also looking to like benefit from the role? Are you looking to help them progress? There's all these questions. So I would say there's no wrong answer, just depends what your goals are. Yeah.
Any other hot takes you could think of?
So hard off the top of my head.
I know it is. I'm trying to prompt you. Do you have an opinion on, I've asked this almost everybody and I love hearing about it. So when I interviewed Jasmine Rocha, we started talking about being late. Do you have an opinion on like if people are late to the gym? Do you feel like if they show up late, they should do push-ups? Do you feel like they have a life and they're an adult? How do you feel?
I think if you're late, like probably it's going to be to your own detriment. So I do think it's super important to like be especially if like you say that you have certain goals and stuff, like you do want to like, people appreciate professionalism, and I think like having respect for other people's time and just like being a professional as often as you can in most areas that you can is going to benefit. Mm-hmm. Have I never been late? Definitely not. All right. But like, I don't know, for me, for example, like I love to do like a 30-minute warm up. So in my head, I'm like, okay, if I'm late, I'm going to have to sacrifice my warm up and go into the training like less prepared. So like I really try to like do my best to be ready to go when the time starts. But yeah, no strong opinions, I guess. Yeah.
That was a very diplomatic response. I can tell you're Canadian. No, I'm just kidding. What's your favorite rule set? You've obviously have, competed at ADCC, IBJJF. What's your absolute favorite?
Oof, that's hard. So there's something to be said, like where I think there's some sub-only matches that are phenomenal. I also do like enjoy when there's integrity to certain positions. And I do think that like, like if you're trying to pass the guard and like sometimes you'll have these sub-only matches where the person on top, it's like, oh, the second they're in danger, they can just like accept bottom position. And I do like the idea. I do think that there is like exciting jiu-jitsu that comes from like, oh, actually, if I don't do something to like actually deal with this problem and I get taken down, like I might lose off those 2 points. And I think that's like actually creates like sometimes more dynamic, like substantial exchanges in the sport. That being said, obviously on the flip side, sometimes the points thing, you have people like stalling out for points. I can't say that there's not a way to game every single rule set almost that I've fought in, so I think that's the bottom line. It just like 1,000 people have said it before me. It does come down to the athletes. I think that like if there was gonna be 2 changes I would make to jiu-jitsu, it would be to be stricter with the boundaries in the way that they are with wrestling, whether that's imposing like a push-out rule or something of the sort. I do think it's like hard to do something against someone who's moving backwards. So I think having stricter penalties off of that kind of stuff would go a long way. And then just in general, like I've actually competed in like 2 wrestling tournaments, and it was crazy to me how fast the like stalling penalties came, where I actually thought I was like, ooh, I'm being so spicy. I was like, look at my hand fight in, taking a rush in. Ooh, I have an underhook now. I was like, I'm so active. And the ref was like, bitch, you've done nothing. Like you have not shot a single shot. You have not attempted anything. And he's just like throwing up penalties at me. And I'm like, oh, you're right. I'm not doing anything. But like honestly, like compared to a jiu-jitsu match, I probably had way more exchanges than like a lot of things that we see, so the bar's a bit low for action. Yeah.
All right, I'm giving you a crazy hot take. Do you have an opinion on men wearing spats with no shorts?
Yeah, okay. Funny you asked that. I was actually giving a camp in Colombia. Shout out Aaron if you're listening to this. I called this guy the fuck out, but I just met this guy, but at the same time, like we got along and, we had mutual friends. So I kind of thought, I was like, oh, I'm comfortable with this guy. And he like rocked up to an evening session wearing just spats. And I literally looked at him. I was like, get the fuck off the mats and go change. I was like, that's unacceptable. And he was actually like taken aback that I was like, I was so forward about it. I was like, I do feel quite strongly about it. I'm like, I literally see the outline of your junk. Like, I don't know. I don't understand like where we've lost the plot that's okay to just like walk out with that,
I love that you're like, you have the confidence to be so forward, because I feel like people that are newer to the sport, I can speak for myself, it's like we feel a little weird telling people what they can and can't do, but the more you've been around, I'm sure the more you gain that confidence. Have you ever had to set boundaries on the mats that maybe it was difficult to set those boundaries?
Yeah, I mean, 100% when you start off, I think it's super difficult to set boundaries, which is why I think it's so important to create environments in the gym where you're not putting someone like, like, for example, like if you're doing the gyms where it's like, okay, like the higher belts choose their roles first and stuff. And like, I'm sure if you asked anyone, you know, in those gyms, like, oh, like, is it okay to say no to someone? It's like, oh, of course it's okay to say no to someone. Like, there's no problem with that. Yeah. But then if you put someone who's not a super assertive person, and then there's like 30 people watching them as like an established black belt at the gym comes and asks them to roll, and then you're being like, oh, just say no if you don't want it. It's harder than that. It's not that easy, you know? So I do think it's like really important to create environments where even the less assertive people feel comfortable saying no and putting up boundaries. So I think it's really important to like, I'll consistently remind people, and also to not make it a big deal. Like I'll say when I teach classes, I'll be like, man, like sometimes I do a lot of like cycle through top down out, you know, so there'll be like 2 people on the wall, we're doing a certain position, whatever. And I'll say before, I'll be like, oh man, you know, if there's like a couple people who are significantly smaller than the rest of the average, I'll be like, oh, if there's ever like, you know, someone you don't feel like going with, just send the next person along. It doesn't matter. Like, you know, sometimes I don't want to roll with that guy either, you know, just make it like casual. It's not a big deal. It's not like an insult to the person. It's just like, sometimes it just doesn't make sense, you know?
Do you feel like it's up to the coach to set that standard?
Yeah, I think across the board, there's like, and what I try to do as like, you know, a female athlete is just kind of like set norms that like, I don't know, that I wish that were like a little bit more around when I was coming up, you know, and like, I think like, it's just important to like set the standard and yeah, not make things into a big deal. Like it's totally, it's not always like a weird thing to say no to someone. Like maybe I just don't want to roll with someone who's like 60 pounds heavier than me today, and that's okay. And to be honest, maybe it's good for that guy too. Like, you know, maybe it's better that he finds partners his own size as well, you know. And I think it's like, let's just make it like so that's not some like big weird dramatic rejection. It's actually just a super casual thing. Be like, yeah, not today, you know. I think that's important.
And there's so many factors, right? Like if you have like a big match coming up, maybe you're not going to train with like the person who it's their first day, you know. Any opinion on hygiene? Like, have you ever come across somebody who has really bad hygiene, and how do you or how did you handle that?
I'm dead. I'm like, I'm the one with bad. No, I'm not. Yeah, don't, people laughing in the background. Okay, I'm actually not. All right. I think there's people who are like real crazy intense. But I'm definitely like, I think that there's like proper precautions you have to take. Like, obviously in the end, like come in with clean gear, shower after training. Like to me, it's like, those are and then, oh, I'm not shy. I guess I'm not shy to point things out on people. Like, you know, if someone's walking around with something real sus on their arm, like I'll ask them, you know? Yeah. So I would say I'm not like I don't know. I think there's people who are like even better at me than hygiene. At hygiene. I don't know. God, what am I saying? No, people are going to think I'm gross. I'm not gross, but yeah, just clean yourselves, you know?
Like more specifically, have you ever, I'm really not gearing this towards you. Have you ever like smelled somebody and you're like, had to like tell them like, hey, you smell like shit?
Dude, you know what? Like, you know what's crazy is I've had those roles, but in my non-assertive era. And I just remember at one point I was rolling with a guy and like truly his breath was like actually gonna knock me out. And I was like, I feel like I'm a really like understanding, empathetic person. I'm like, sometimes you just got BO. Sometimes you just, you know, you had a stressful day, you come in, whatever. I'm like, I can make peace with that. But this guy's breath was just on another level. And I remember like fighting I felt like I was doing, I don't know, like an eco roll where the constraint was like never be face to face with this guy and never let him within like, I don't know, a foot. So I was just like, my open guard retention was like on fire, you know? If he did put me in deficit, I was immediately like, you know, trying to like just stand up. It's like, so I learned a lot of things with this guy. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, get the fuck away from me. No, that is the worst. And like, again, going back to like, I feel like when you first start, like it's so much harder to be like assertive. I had Big Dan on and he was telling me that like he rolled with someone who had like the worst breath. So he just reminded me, and he told Danaher, and Danaher was like, oh, okay. He was like, just so serious. Just buy me some mouthwash and I'll give it to him. And Big Dan was like, you're just gonna go up to him? And he's like, yeah, what else do you want me to do? And I was like, honestly, I get it. Like, you should just be able to be that casual, but like, you don't want to hurt people's feelings either. So did you ever tell this man that his breath was knocking you out?
I did it, and I do get it to a certain point. It's kind of like when you have shit in your teeth, and it's like, oh, why didn't no one tell me I have shit in my teeth? And it's like, we don't want to hurt your feelings. I was like, well, now I just walked around, and everyone who looked at me was like, you, you know. So it is nice to just tell people, yeah.
Too, for sure. Any other hot takes you can think of? I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
No, I guess not. No, just like that. Yeah.
Anything coming up for you that you can talk about?
No, I'll probably compete again by the end of the year. I guess I'll just say that for now because that's all I'm allowed to say. But yeah.
Sean, anything before I wrap up?
Sorry.
Oh yeah, I'm very sorry, and I'm sorry to all of you. Thank you for being so patient. It really is stressful. I'm sorry.
Please don't apologize. Like, shit happens all the time.
I know.
It's gonna happen with me too. So
Yeah,
don't
no.
worry,
But thank you. And we'll end with, do you have any shout outs or anything you want to shout out your sponsors or anything? The mic is yours.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I always want to give a shout out to my sponsors, especially Hyperfly. They do so much to support me and allow me to live the life I do. So, so happy to be working with a brand like them. And then, I always get so I'm like, fuck, I'm not gonna mention the right people, but yeah, all the other homies, what's up?
Shout out to Adele.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, come give me the mic. Give me the mic. I am wearing the new limited edition Daddy Fornerino Born for This Shit collection. Made with Hyperfly. The stuff is really cool. I have the t-shirt on right now. There's like a little Hyperfly in the back. Okay. And then there's also like the rash guard and shorts that she wore at CGI. They look really cool. I'm actually in the process of trying to get my hands on them because I want to be matchy-matched next time that I see her. But yeah, definitely get yourself some of that stuff. It's really nice.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. All right, we kind of did it.